He should have been dead. The woman staring at him from across the room had met this man 40 years ago. Same face, same eyes, same posture, same voice when he laughed. She was in her 70s now. He was not. She later wrote, "He does not age. I cannot explain it." She was not alone. Across 3 decades of documented European history, in letters, diplomatic dispatches, private memoirs never meant for public eyes, the same words appear again and again from people who had no reason to lie, and every reason to be ashamed of what they were writing. This man did not change. Voltaire, the sharpest, most dangerous skeptic of the 18th century, wrote about him privately to Frederick the Great of Prussia. He called him a man who knows everything and who never dies. Louis XV of France handed him a royal laboratory and used him to run secret diplomacy behind his own government's back. He claimed to have lived for centuries, and no one, not one person in all of Europe, could prove he hadn't. A man who should not exist. His name, the name he used, was the Count of Saint-Germain, not his real name. Nobody ever learned his real name. He appears in the European historical record in the early 1700s fully formed. No origin, no backstory, no traceable past, no birth record, no parents, no country. Ask him where he was from and he smiled. Press him and he gave a different answer each time. None of them checked out. 12 languages, not passable, fluent. Witnesses tested him repeatedly across the courts of France, the salons of England, diplomatic tables across the continent. He never faltered. French, English, German, Italian, Portuguese, Russian, Arabic. He moved between them mid-conversation the way other men moved between rooms. He played violin at a level professional musicians struggled to account for. He painted, and his paintings unsettled art experts. An unnatural luminosity in the pigment, a glow no one could chemically replicate. The substance he mixed into his paint was never identified. Now here is the detail that stopped people cold then, and stops them cold now. He never ate, not once. Not at a single dinner table. Across dozens of documented accounts spanning 40 years, at the finest houses in Europe, surrounded by dukes and ministers and royalty, he sat, he conversed brilliantly, he charmed everyone in the room. And he consumed nothing. He always had an explanation, a special regimen, a sensitive constitution. The explanation was always different. The behavior was always identical. He carried extraordinary gemstones in his coat pockets at all times. He gave them away like a man who could not imagine running out. People who met him in the 1720s encountered him again in the 1760s. They all wrote the same thing. He looked exactly the same. The courts of power. Understand what kind of man we are talking about before we go further. He was not a carnival act. He operated inside the absolute center of 18th century European power, and the people at that center had spent their entire lives learning to detect frauds. Louis XV of France was one of the most powerful monarchs on earth. His advisors, ministers, and intelligence networks existed for one purpose: to protect the throne from manipulation. Louis XV gave Saint-Germain a private laboratory inside the Château de Chambord, a royal residence, with full funding and complete privacy. The official justification, dye research. Some of what he produced apparently worked. That was the cover. French Foreign Ministry archives, state documents still accessible today, record that in 1760, Louis XV deployed Saint-Germain on a covert diplomatic mission to The Hague. The objective, back-channel peace negotiations with Britain during the 7 Years' War, a conflict destroying French finances and killing French soldiers by the thousands. His own foreign minister had no idea. When the Duc de Choiseul discovered what had happened, he was incandescent. He had Saint-Germain publicly denounced, a spy, a fraud, a dangerous impostor. He issued a formal demand for arrest. The king refused to move against him. Let that settle. A man with no name, no origin, no verifiable history, and the King of France shielded him from his own cabinet. Madame de Pompadour wrote about Saint-Germain in her private correspondence. She called him credible, compelling. She had spent 20 years watching every manipulator in France attempt to penetrate the inner circle of power. She was not describing a clever fraud. He surfaced in Russia during the crisis surrounding Peter III and later claimed a role in those events. Russian court documents reference an unidentified foreign figure from that period. That figure has never been named. The question was never whether he was connected. The question was what he was actually connected to. The alchemy. Now we reach the part of the record that no one has ever satisfactorily explained. Louis XV had a diamond, valuable except for one visible internal flaw. As a direct test, the king handed it to Saint-Germain. Saint-Germain took it. He returned it. The flaw was gone. His jewelers examined it. Same stone, same weight, same cut, same characteristics. Not replaced, not substituted. The flaw had been removed. Louis XV reportedly said this man could extract a king's ransom from any sovereign in Europe. How? Unknown. No method recorded. No formula found. His laboratory at Chambord was cleared before any inventory could be conducted. By whom and under whose instruction, the documents do not say. Whatever he was doing in that room left with him. He also claimed to manufacture gemstones from raw materials. He demonstrated this in private for multiple European nobles. The accounts are second-hand but independent. Different witnesses, different countries, different decades, describing the same thing. His central claim, the one he never sold, never advertised, never monetized, was an elixir vitae, a substance that extended life indefinitely. He spoke of it only as something he took himself, privately, the way a man mentions a habit that is simply part of his life. He was not selling anything. That was what made him genuinely frightening. Prince Charles of Hesse-Kassel, a man of serious scientific training, hosted Saint-Germain through his final documented years. He later wrote that Saint-Germain was the most profound intellect he had ever encountered in chemistry and metallurgy. Hesse-Kassel asked him for his formulas. Saint-Germain gave him nothing. When he was gone, the knowledge was gone. He keeps appearing after he should be dead. The death record, 27th of February, 1784. Schleswig, household of Prince Charles of Hesse-Kassel. No burial record, no grave, no documented interment, no funeral announcement. For a man known personally to the ruling families of half a dozen European nations, there is no grave anywhere. 1 year later, his name appears in Masonic Lodge records. Paris, 1785. Listed as an attending delegate, the document has been examined. It has not been dismissed as a forgery. He had been dead, officially, for 12 months. In 1789, as the French Revolution begins consuming the court, it was built to destroy. Madame d'Adhémar, a documented noblewoman with a verifiable historical record, writes in her memoirs that Saint-Germain came to her in person. He told her the Queen was in mortal danger. He named specific individuals who would fail to protect her. He described what was about to happen to France. She wrote that he had done this before, years earlier, when no one believed such a thing was possible. It happened exactly as he described. She wrote it. It is in the historical record, a real person, placing a man with a signed death certificate alive and present 5 years after it was issued. Napoleon III, not a superstitious man, an emperor who governed through information and control, ordered a formal intelligence dossier compiled on the Count of Saint-Germain. That dossier does not exist in the French National Archives. No record of its contents has ever surfaced. An emperor ordered a file on a man who had died 70 years before he gave the order, and the file vanished. In 1821, the writer Charles Nodier claimed to have met him. By the late 1800s, Helena Blavatsky had built part of the Theosophical movement, one that would shape millions of lives, around the claim that Saint-Germain was an immortal ascended master who had permanently broken the mechanism of death. These are not medieval folk stories. These are named individuals, documented people, writing specific things on specific dates in recoverable records. Who was he, actually? Historians have worked this question for 200 years. None have closed it. The strongest academic candidate, a son of Francis II Rákóczi, Prince of Transylvania, stripped of his titles after a failed uprising against the Habsburgs. A Rákóczi son would have had hidden wealth beyond Habsburg reach, access to every major European court through his father's network. and every reason to operate under a false identity, his real name would have made him a target for the most powerful dynasty on the continent. The timeline fits, the geography fits, the sophistication fits. It cannot be proven. The second theory, a professional intelligence operative, possibly the most effective the 18th century produced. The ageless mystic was an engineered persona, a man who cannot be identified, cannot be prosecuted, a man who appears supernatural commands, trust no conventional diplomat ever could. The agelessness was managed, disciplined control of where he appeared, whom he met, how many years passed between appearances before the same witnesses. This theory is the most rational. It is also the most disturbing, because it means someone designed him, someone built this. The third theory, a fraud of such sustained brilliance, it constitutes its own category of human achievement. Genuine expertise in chemistry, genuine skill in lapidary arts, iron discipline across 50 years in the most scrutinized social environment in the world. Kings believed him not because they were credulous, but because he was operating at a level none of them had encountered. Each theory closes some of the evidence, none closes all of it. 12 languages, paintings with pigment no one can identify, a flawed diamond returned without its flaw, a laboratory cleared before anyone could document it, a death certificate with no grave, a Masonic record from 12 months after his death, an imperial dossier that no longer exists. Choose the theory that lets you sleep. The record does not care which one you pick. The man history cannot close. There is a churchyard in Eckernförde in northern Germany. There is a stone with his name carved into it. There is nothing beneath it. The man who removed a flaw from a king's diamond and left no record of how, who carried state secrets for a king who protected him from his own government, who sat at the finest dinner tables in Europe for 50 years and never once ate, who held a death certificate dated 1784 and appeared in a Masonic record in 1785, who warned a noblewoman about a revolution that had not yet happened and was reportedly standing in front of her when it did. He entered the historical record without explanation. He left it the same way. No will, no estate, no funeral, no body. Voltaire trusted nothing. He questioned everything. He spent his career dismantling the lies powerful institutions told ordinary people. He wrote about Saint-Germain in a private letter to Frederick the Great. Not a public statement, not a performance. A private letter where a man writes what he actually thinks. He called him a man who never dies and who knows everything. He was joking. Probably. The stone in Eckernförde marks a location where no remains have ever been confirmed. Most historical mysteries are not really mysteries. They are gaps, missing records, lost documents, destroyed by time. The answer existed. We just no longer have it. The Count of Saint-Germain is not that kind of mystery. The more carefully you examine the record, the less it explains. Every document that should close the case opens a new question. Every answer produces two more. He walked into European history without a past. He walked out of it without a grave. And the file, the one Napoleon III ordered compiled, the one that subsequently ceased to exist, is not the only one that was never closed. The file on the Count of Saint-Germain has never been closed. It is open right now.